In 1987, we got this game show here that was short lived, but it was a pretty funny little game and it involved trying to figure out what a strange word was. Especially since it was a word that could be found in a dictionary where you probably didn't think this word even existed, but it does. But you can play with and what have you. So anyway, yeah. But anyway, prepare yourselves. In this episode of the Wide World of Game Shows, I am going to talk about the game show known as Wordplay. Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews presents Wide World of Game Shows. Greetings, my fellow YouTubers, and welcome. I'm the Big D, and this is Big D's Entertainment Rankings and Reviews. So, I'm about to bring to you another episode of the Wide World of Game Shows. And I'm going to be talking about one of what I feel like is probably one of the most challenging games shows that I know of. And one where you really have to, figure out the definition to a word that you think doesn't exist, but it does as it appears in the dictionary and what have you. Well, you better believe it. So, here it is. I bring to you Wordplay. Wordplay was a very challenging game show that was produced by Sky Brothers Sid Vintage Television. It originally premiered before 1986 was over with on December 29th, 1986. It premiered and was shown on NBC. Sorry, I got a little again. Sorry. Anyway, produced along with Fiedler Berlin Productions and Rick Ambrose Television, this was a show that was hosted by Tom Kennedy. As this was, I think, was one of his last games, as a matter of fact, and announced by Charlie O'Donnell. Now, the show features three celebrities offering definitions of vocabulary words to contestants who then determine which celebrity is giving the correct definition. Now, of course, I have seen a little bit of this game before, and I must say it is wow. But it is a real challenging one, though. Anyway, now, a fun fact that one of the producers was actually Sky Brothers, which was actually a record company. But this wasn't the first time. They had also worked on some other stuff like some TV shows and movies. Now, for the main game itself, two contestants, one usually a returning champion, competed through 3 rounds to win money by guessing the definitions of unusual words. That's right, there are unusual words. Some I couldn't even figure out and what have you, but I gotta say that's why I feel like this is one of the most challenging game shows in my opinion. The game board consisted of a 3x3 grid of words, with the middle column shifted one level above the others. The contestant in control chose a word, and three celebrity panelists each gave a possible definition with an accompanying humorous anecdote. Panelists were provided with definitions before the show. If the contestant chose the correct definition, he or she won the money. An incorrect choice gave the opponent a chance to seal the value with a correct guess. Now, 2 words were played per round, with each contestant choosing one. The champion or the contestant on the left, if there was no returning champion, played first in round 1. The challenger in round 2, and then in round 3, it was either the trailing contestant or, in the case of a tie, the left contestant would go first. Words were worth $25, $50, or $75 in round one. These values doubled in round two and again in round three. Every word was horizontally and vertically connected to its immediate neighbors, and the value of each word was only revealed if a contestant correctly guessed its definition. Doing so won not only the money for that word, but also the total of all values to which it was connected. For example, a $75 word connected to an already defined $50 word would award $125 to the contestant who won it. If a $150 word connected to either of these two values was guessed in a later round, it would award $275. If both contestants missed a word, a block was placed on the board in that location and all connections to it were broken. Now, fun fact I've seen of wordplay is you'll hear a bink sound when you get your money at which actually that did sound familiar because it was recently used in another game show NBC aired a few years before that, and that was the Barry and Enright produced game show Hot Potato. Yep. Now, one word per game was designated as the day's bonus word. Choosing this word and guessing its definition correctly awarded a bonus prize to the contestant, usually, if not always, a vacation, which was his or hers to keep regardless of the game's outcome. The contestant with the highest total after three rounds became the champion, kept his or her accumulated money, and advanced to the bonus round, which was called double definitions, which I'll begin to in just a moment. If the game ended in a tie, a seventh word was played, selected by the champion or the contestant on the left. Each celebrity gave a brief definition with no accompanying story, and the champion had the option to either play the word or pass it to the challenger. A correct guess won the game, while an incorrect guess gave the victory to the opponent. Once that was done, they go on to the bonus game, which was double definitions. The day's champion advanced to that for an accumulating cash jackpot. The round was originally titled Speed Word for the first week, but it was changed quickly changed once the producers realized that another NBC show had been using that term for more than 2 years at the time, and that, of course, was Scrabble. The game board for this round was a grid of 24 numbered spaces in four rows of six, with each space vertically and horizontally connected to its immediate neighbors. When a champion called a number, host Tom Kennedy read two definitions for a word, such as writing implement, animal enclosure, and that would be the word for that was pen, P-E-N. Guessing the word awarded control of that space, while passing put up a block that the champion would have to go around, kind of like what we saw. Well, sort of actually like Blockbusters, but different though. Multiple guesses were allowed with no penalty. The champion could move off a space only by giving a correct response or passing. The champion had precisely 45 seconds to complete a path connecting the left and right sides of the board. Doing so won the jackpot, which began at $5,000 and increased by $2,500 for every day it went unclaimed. Failing to complete the path won $100 per correct answer, just like it's been done on most game shows at the time or even before that. The largest jackpot awarded on the show was $27,500, which occurred during the final week on the air. Contestants were allowed to stay for 3 consecutive days or until they were defeated, whichever came first. Anyway, when the show premiered, the show was slotted at in the 12:30 11:30 p.m. a.m. time slot following Super Password, and that had been occupied by the now defunct soap Search for Tomorrow, which had aired on the network for the last 4.5 years, which it had originally started on CBS in 1951, and was the longest running daytime program in history at the time of its cancellation. But it did have some competition because it didn't go didn't perform well against other soaps because it went up against the first half of The Young and the Restless on CBS and Loving on ABC. And henceforth, the show was also prone to being preempted by some NBC affiliates that continue to air local newscasts or syndicated programming in that hour. NBC announced the cancellation of Wordplay in the summer of 1987 in order to make room for their next new edition, Win, Lose, or Draw. The final episode of the series aired on September 4th, 1987. Yes, the show ended on that day, September 4th, 1987, after an overall total of 176 episodes were produced and aired. After this had aired for over a half a year. Anyway, now, 3 days after the final episode aired, Scrabble was moved to the show's time slot. The pilot episode for the series was shot in October 1986 for the same network and featured Peter Tamarkin as host, from which a few months after Pressure Luck was just canceled by CBS. Of course, this wasn't Tamarkin's first time on NBC. He had recently hosted the short-lived 1983 show Hitman before this. And according to him, he was replaced as host because the producers wanted him to alter the style in which he hosted, which created a negative reaction from test audiences. This episode presented the main game board in a different format with 9 words and 3 blocks arranged in a 4x3 rectangular grid. Now, after this, the show had never been seen again until later on in the mid 2010s when it was added to the new Digital game show network Buzzer, but it unfortunately only aired it for a little while, and thus the show has not been seen again. However, full episodes of some of these shows can be seen on YouTube. You can probably find some if some game show fanatics have them on their channels, or maybe the Game Show Vault, formerly Wink Martindale's channel. May he rest in peace. Now then, this of course was hosted by Tom Kennedy. Now apparently, this was actually the last game show he ever hosted, from the looks of it. Yeah, because he had already recently hosted other game shows, including the original Split Second in the 70s, Name That Tune, Password Plus, which he did after the death of original host Alan Lennon. He also hosted many others like Dr. IQ, The Big Game, It's Your Bet, Break the Bank, and of course the nighttime syndicated nighttime version of The Price is Right. And this premiered after CBS had canceled his recent hit show of Bilanguage. But anyway, yes. So I'd say this was his last game show because he retired in 1989. And then, of course, he passed away in October of 2020. Now, the announcer for the show was the late great Charlie O'Donnell. Most people would know him as the announcer of Wheel of Fortune. He also was known for announcing for American Bandstand as well. But not only that, he was also well known for being an announcer to the $100,000 Pyramid, as well as Card Sharks, Trivia Trap, and To Tell the Truth even. But mostly I would remember him for doing the announcing for shows like The Joker's Wild, Tic Tac Doe, and Bullseye and Hot Potato. Of course, the latter 3 he did after Jay Stewart left. He also was the announcer for the short-lived Monopoly game show as well, and Headline Chasers. But anyway, yeah. He just did a lot of these. He even did announcing for other shows, including Dance Fever and Solid Gold. And of course, he sadly passed away in 2010. Yes, in November of 2010. But anyway, Wordplay, in my opinion, I feel like this show is so underrated, but I do think it's a really neo game show. Now, actually, I did see that Jamie Farr, best known for playing Klinger on MASH, substituted for Mr. Kennedy for 1 week of shows. So yeah. But anyway, I must say this show was really challenging. Wordplay, short-lived, but it's pretty good and what have you. Now, like I said, you can find episodes of this on here on YouTube. But of the whole, Wordplay not bad, but still pretty, good though, in my opinion. Please stand by. I may not know who the celebrities are, but here's a look at, well, let's say where the celebrities are in this game. And here's a shot where the well, not the celebrities, but well, the contestants are. Woo-hoo. But now I'm sure you know who Tom Kennedy was, though. But anyway, you'll see him in this if you would like to check out. Like I said, you can find several episodes here on YouTube, so I'd say you got a good chance of finding it. So that's it. Wordplay, pretty challenging game, but it was decent. Maybe not one of the best game shows, but it looked pretty good, though, as I can remember. So that's going to do it for this Wide World Game Shows episode. Did you ever see Wordplay? If so, tell me what you thought about in the comment section below. If you like this video, click the like button, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, and be a part of the Big D Nation. Continue to help support my channel, and you know the rest. And we'll have another episode of Wide World Game Shows coming up for you later on next week with another rarely remembered short-lived game, and that being All-Star Blitz. So if you like this, check out some of these other game shows that kind of do have a little bit of words elements to them. In the upper left-hand corner, check out the episode of Wide World Game Shows I did for one show that I mentioned that kind of had its bonus round kind of pattern after kind of felt like the bonus game for that in Blockbusters, where I talk about both U.S. versions. Or you can go to the upper right hand corner and see the episode I did on Scrabble, which was a pretty good game show. Or if you'd like, go to the bottom left hand corner. You can see the Wide World Game Shows episode I did on another game show that Tom Kennedy hosted, and that was the short-lived which started or from 79. And the bottom right hand corner is the button you can click to subscribe. If you like rankings and reviews on movies, TV, music, video games, etc., as well as the wide world of game shows, then I'm your guy. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm the Big D saying, see ya.